content just to be an also-ran behind the champion, sworn enemy of lying, pomposity, smugness, and groupthink, which is Tucker Carlson. I'm Mel McGinnis here today with the Sophie Scholl Monologue. Is it state-run media or state collusion media? When you notice what takes place in our media today and the terminology that's being thrown out by largely a majority of them, makes you wonder if they're just in collusion with the government more so than state-run by the government. We hear that phrase a lot. But just to put a little more specificity to it, it's kind of like collusion. You wonder how much talk from the White House gets to certain media outlets, so that's their narrative that's running. Wasn't it interesting the other night when MSNBC refused to put on Donald Trump's victory speech at the Iowa caucus? Rachel Maddow basically calls Trump a fascist. Again, that term is thrown around without any real reference point or accuracy of which the term is used. Fascism means the state does not own but controls businesses, the economy, corporations. They tend to be in collusion with them. That's exactly what is happening. More and more, the federal government wants whatever vestige is left of private entities to be incorporated in some way, or I should say connected to in some way, to the federal government. It's the Democrats that are pushing this. It's fascism in ways in which John Flynn in the last century warned would happen in our century. And people are not aware of it. Fascism strangles freedom. When you take a look at what the Democrats have been doing, that's what they want to do, is to control what little freedom we have left. Oh, and then they say the enemy of democracy. I mean, what is that all about? Again, it's just throwing around a term to try to put fear into those who are uninformed so that they cast a vote merely out of emotion. When you try to take a candidate off a ballot, that's not democratizing society. That's limiting their choice. But again, this is what those who are saying a certain individual is a threat to democracy are actually doing themselves. Just a couple other things that I'd like to mention. We can get this border under control starting tomorrow if the Democrats in the Senate and the president would get on board with H.R. 2. The Secure Border Act of 2023. Just call a moratorium on what we see happening illegally at our open border, which Vivek Ramaswamy is right, an open border is no border at all. Just simply change a couple of policies and we can get this under control, rather than the White House saying we need billions upon billions of dollars in order to manage the system. No, we don't need to print more money. We don't need to tax more people. We don't need to raise the rate of the income tax to get the border under control. It's simple policy change. And those policy changes would move towards securing this disorderly and lawless entryway from Mexico to the United States, which is no border at all. Thankfully, Texas is doing something about it. And I appreciate what Governor Abbott has done to secure the border there. And finally, just like to add, I cannot believe this alphabet soup of bureaucracies that we have. Do you know that Jim Jordan, a congressman I really respect, he truly is a conservative. He's one of the few in Congress who really keeps his oath to the Constitution. He wrote a letter in behalf of the Select Subcommittee on the Weaponization of the Federal Government because he saw within the federal government this agency called the Office of Stakeholder Integration and Engagement in the Strategic Operations Division of the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. Talk about alphabet soup. That is classic. In short, it's called FinCEN. FinCEN. Again, for the Office of Stakeholder Integration and Engagement in the Strategic Operations Division of the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. What were they telling businesses to do? To flag those purchases which have Trump associated with it, or have the word MAGA associated with it, or have the word Bible associated with it. There you see this surveillance by the feds taking place upon us average citizens. And again, the Democrats are basically all for giving the feds this kind of power while they want to denude the local police in keeping law and order within the cities. You see, they got it upside down. A fascist-friendly government does stuff like this. A freedom-loving government severely limits what the feds can do and empowers what the local police can do. Beware of the way in which you hear those on the media using terms like fascist and democracy, because they lead you down a path of misinformation and disinformation, the very thing they're accusing those of us who are on the side of the Constitution, those of us they categorize as the right, those of us that they want to label as white supremacists when we're not. We just want freedom. And that freedom involves the severe limitation of the federal government. And one last word, isn't that President from Argentina great? Who spoke at the World Economic Forum? This guy's a libertarian. I don't know exactly where he stands on the moral issues, but I love it. He really lambasted socialists that were there, saying basically, you're the kind of individuals that choke economic development. He was the one, I think, calling out those advocates of green energy who really stifle business. And isn't it interesting, in Chicago, people who had electric cars couldn't charge their car because it was too cold for the charge to go through. Doesn't that tell you something? Well, unlike Tony Kornheiser, pardon the interruption, I cannot promise you I'll do better the next time. And unlike Tony, I will raise and fly the flag of sackcloth. We need humility. Bye for now.